This is Future Sense Now, where we explore the landscape and byways of our shared futures. Future Sense Now is brought to you by the Futures Forum. Stay tuned for a journey to the futures of women with host Dr. Claire Nelson.
Greetings and welcome to Future Sense Now. I'm an online easy of the Futures Forum. I'm Claire Nelson and your travel guide. And this is our exploration of the futures of women in 2017. So we're celebrating Women's History Month. And as I said, we're exploring the future history of women. And we're looking at the year 2030 and beyond. We've chosen 2030 because the UN and the world has a big agenda. We have 17 goals, of which one, Sustainable Development Goal 5, is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So today we will be speaking with Feija Duijne, who is from the Netherlands, and she'll correct me if I pronounce her name wrong. And she's the CEO and owner of Future Motions, where she does training and strategic foresight with many ministries in that country, facilitates workshops, and designs, very importantly, dialogue processes with organizations, as well as doing some public speaking. She's also, importantly, the president of the Dutch Future Society. So she's very well versed in this space, and we're sure it will be an interesting conversation. So welcome, Feija. How are you?
Thank you, Claire. I'm very good. Nice to be on the show.
Yeah, I'm really happy you could join us. So tell me, what's happening over in the Netherlands at present when it comes to the women's agenda?
Well, this year we're celebrating the 100th years of the first female professor. And at the universities, there's a big effort to have more female professors going on there. So that's an important moment for the Netherlands in terms of female competencies.
So you wonder what will be happening in 100 years from now. 100 years from now, we should be what, 2118? We probably be celebrating the first Android something.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or maybe women may not exist as a particular term anymore. Who knows? So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure you also probably were watching American news a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago rather. It seems like months, so much has happened. When women took to the streets basically to, I would say, to inaugurate a different perspective of what the U.S. future might look like. Were women in the streets in the Netherlands as well? Was there any women's marches?
Yes, there was the women's marches in Amsterdam, in The Hague, and in several cities. But at that time, I was in California, so I noticed the things going on there. But I wasn't here in the Netherlands. But the same vibe was going on here as well.
So what do people in the Netherlands think about this meme, which is now taking on new meaning? The future is female.
Well, I think women are becoming much more aware of things like the income gap, that they are aware that they're paid less for the same kind of jobs. They are aware that, yes, you always need to do an extra effort. And they also are aware of that. If you look at the universities, for instance, there are more female students in many different studies. So yes, women have a lot of opportunity in this century.
So as we look then at the UN Sustainable Development Goals and we look at some of the targets, for example, one of them says recognize the value and unpaid care and domestic work through the provision of public services, infrastructure, and social protection, and ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision making. In political, economic, and public life, how would you say the trend is in the Netherlands in terms of leadership and women's roles in leadership, as well as unpaid care and domestic work? Is that trend moving towards what the SDGs are asking for?
It's an agenda for, I think, quite a long time, and yes, there is a lot of effort to get more women in leadership positions. But I also think women are more into having a balanced life and not working like 60 hours a week just for the job and not for all the other things. So despite all the efforts to get more women into leadership positions, it's hard to fulfill those positions because it doesn't allow you to do all the other things that women also enjoy.
But would you think that given how, let's say, the rise of artificial intelligence, the big conversation happening now, where we're talking about loss of jobs to automation, that indeed, when we say the future is female, we might also be talking about a different, let's say, expectation of what a job should look like or what a leader should look like. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's very interesting that you mentioned that, as in the future, probably with AI coming up and probably less jobs than there are today, and also the more caring activities are taking a bigger place in society, especially with the aging population. All these activities that are usually done by women are becoming a larger part of people's lives. So with less working hours, the female activities, which are often the non-paid stuff, are being valued, have to become more valued, much more. So yes, you're right. It's an interesting development.
Do you think women might be part of the change towards what people already are experimenting with in terms of like sharing jobs and those things? You think that that might be a more prominent activity or incidents in the future of those, that idea of a shared job?
A shared job, that means you can both be on the same position but less hours.
Yes.
Right. That's something that women really, really are looking for. But I notice it right now with some of my friends who have children in the age that they need to be at home with their children in the afternoons. And many of them find it so hard to get a job for 24 hours a week. So, yes, while this is something that is very much sought after, it's still something that needs to break through because there are not so many jobs that are 24 hours. So probably this will change in the next 10 years. I hope so.
Well, again, so I guess as we think about the future then and the futures of women in the workplace, this notion then perhaps of maybe two women decided to apply for a job and convincing an employer that this would be like having one person, the same cost might be something as a test ground. Don't you? Do you think that could happen? Is it something that's very far fetched?
I think it's possible, and I hope it very much for many women. Yeah, for instance, one of my friends, she's doing also holding an administrative job, financial administration, and she really wants to work 24 hours, but it's so difficult to find another job. And if this type of work could be shared, it's a relief for many mothers and women.
Well, I'm looking here at one of the other goals, and it talks about the use and so let's think of it. So let's say that we would consider that as an empowering thing for a woman to be able to choose, right? So it also
Yes.
says the use of enabling technology to particular information and communication technology to promote the empowerment of women. Now, that has not really been seen as an empowerment thing, but I'm wondering if in the discourse that's going to be happening a lot more because of the SDGs, because of what's happening in America, that this might not come up as a specific agenda for women, certainly in the developed countries that might be doing this, and even perhaps in developing countries where there are not enough jobs, period. So somebody has a job, they wish they could split their job, but there's no paradigm for it.
Hmm.
I mean, how you think that could, what kind of thing could actually make that happen? How you think that might happen, that might come to pass?
I think that's a cultural change. I think that you need to have a societal dialogue on that, being more on the agenda, what it means to have a job, what it means
Ah,
to do other things. The discussion on the basic income also needs to be part of that. So yeah, those things probably go really slowly, but to have this discussion, it might be one of the first steps.
I'm interested in this idea of what it means to have a basic income. Because as we think about the future of women, do you think that because of AI and because of what some people are now calling the backlash of men feeling, I guess, deposed or whatever the word is, um, that is look at as a scenario that men might decide, okay, women have gone far enough and they need to be stopped. Do you think that that's a possibility?
So are you saying women need to be stopped?
Yes. Do you think that one scenario for the future, in terms of how women have advanced, could be that women need to be stopped? There's this idea that women have gone far enough.
Well, implicitly, there's always competition. Those things you never make hard. Um,
I mean, if you're doing a
well, I think
scenario, if you were to write a headline from a scenario today, based on the kind of workshops that you're doing, the conversations that you're doing, how would you see a scenario for 2030? Realistically, at least one of the two or three realistic ones you might see occurring.
in terms of jobs and women and AI and that sort of things.
Yes, or in any way, in any way.
I think the march of AIs and digital assistants is going much faster than we can anticipate. That wouldn't be 2030, but more or 2020.
Really?
I think, yeah. I mean, all
Wow.
these jobs, all these advancements in voice recognition and chatbots is going really rapidly at the moment. So all these jobs that depend on service, customer relations and so they will be mainly dealt with by AI. But what's left is all these jobs that require personal contact, that require really seeing each other and understanding and sharing this human touch. So I think there's gonna be a shift in jobs and in 2030 all these new jobs, they really require new sets of skills. So it's really important that people are getting aware of that right now and learn different skill sets and stay eager and keep this lifelong learning attitude going on, because the more steady going jobs, they disappear. It requires creativity, human touch, and be able to make things.
One of the things I wanted to raise with you as well is this idea of even the idea that women as a separate goal from the other challenges, because sometimes I struggle with that notion that we have a women's goal as separate from a goal around sustainable cities or a goal around water or a goal around whatever. So let's look at one the global challenges. What would be quote unquote your favorite global challenge area? Is it would be something in health, pandemics, an environment one, rule of law, crime? Which of the global challenges would you pick as the one that you pay attention to?
I'm mostly involved in the food system.
Okay.
At least I've been doing a lot of work in that, and many of the SDGs are about transforming the food systems towards a more sustainable system. And yes, women have a large role in the food system.
So as we look towards 2030 then and the SDGs and the role of women in the food system, what do you foresee as a potential um, outcome by then in terms of as producers, as owners of production houses, as scientists doing the research on food research from seed to production. And matter of fact, let's go beyond food. Look at agriculture as the root of so many things. It's not just
Yeah.
food. Agriculture is used for herbs, for farming, paper. What are some ways in which you think women could, if they were more, let's say, engaged in that sector, make different things happen, make a paradigm shift?
Well, women are in many places in the world far more the central person who is taking care of the family budget, of the family meals, and so the woman is the pivotal role in the family's food system basically. And in terms of farming, yes, women are able to farm small plots, provide for their families, and well, women have this responsibility. So if they will be willing to experiment, find new solutions, I think because they have this broad overview of responsibility, they understand the possibilities. So especially in places like Africa, I think women have a pivotal role in the food system. In developed countries, I noticed that women have a more central role in terms of nutrition and lifestyles and helping people to get a more healthier and sustainable lifestyle. So women are most closely to consumers, to families, to children, to in schools, and their role is to teach people and to help them to get a more healthy lifestyle.
And so, but given all these apps that exist in terms of nutrition support, or apps that tell you when to wake, when to sleep, do you think that women's roles in this area in the future will be the same, or will they morph into something completely different?
I don't know. I don't know. What I know from the food system is that, well, the more technical issues, that's usually where the most men are, and where it comes to consulting and coaching, that's more women. And I think in developing countries, there's a stronger role for women in the food system. I'm not sure if it's changing. I don't know.
Do you think that this is sort of this sort of idea of nature versus nurture in a certain way, and the reality is, according to science, the right hemisphere of the brain of women, which governs system thinking and empathy and emotion, is more developed in women than in men, and so let's say that we agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know we have a food challenge, so we have a lot of people who don't have food today. We have a conversation that's going on globally around, should we do GMO or not? Is it safe for humans, really? Or will we have enough food if we don't do GMO? That's just this, dialogue. And then we have fears around climate change, making food supply even worse. So, do you think women then, in terms of women's role in this global dialogue, and the fact that we have these international organizations, which again tend to be very dominantly men-led, do you think that there should be some more intentional, if you will, diversity designed into the leadership structure, into the planning structures, given we're facing a potential crisis down the road with people who are systems thinkers, because these are systems problems?
I think women have a more yeah. Well, I'm not sure if I can say that this like on more well, but probably they're more integral view. I mean, they have to deal with all these family and children issues, so they are forced to look things on a very practical level, and they cannot stay in abstractions, uh, which you can do if you work in a large organization and you're only focused on your one silo. But as a woman, and you always have to deal with your family, and that makes things really
Ah,
concrete.
so you're saying that the fact that science has actually done research, right? And that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. You're saying the fact that science has done research and shows that women's right hemisphere is more developed is not necessarily a nature thing. It could be that it happened because of nurture, as in we had to become that way because we've had to do.
Yeah, I think so. Women have to take up all these roles. I mean, women have far more jobs than men because they have to toggle all these different roles in their day.
So in other words, the brain adapted to suit what we were doing and not the other way around, which puts a
Could
whole
be.
different
I don't
construct
know.
on it. I don't know either, because as I've heard it said, at least the argument people are using now is to say, okay, women are hardwired to be more empathetic, and so therefore, but maybe as you say rightly, it's the other way around. The women that they have tested, their brains have become like that because they are like that, not because they're hardwired to be like that, which is a very interesting idea. But then, in that case, um, as we look towards in a situation where they're talking about using artificial intelligence more and more in decision making, in the courts, in making medical diagnosis. Will even there be any relevance in saying something like the future is female, or having more women in decision making will make a difference? I mean, what will it matter if we are doing AI, unless we are having AI being programmed by a woman or AI being programmed by a man? I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there and see.
I don't know. I don't know if it matters, but I think it matters if society is more equal for men and women, and that will take a long time. I mean, I'm 40 now, and I've always have had a professional career, and I know that in my 20s, people enjoy having an eager, ambitious, and bright girl in their team. But if you're becoming mid-career,
Yeah.
there's so many men who wants to be ahead of you. There's this stereotype of leadership, which is male, which is tall, and you always have to run one step harder as a woman to be in the same position. You're not the image that they have in mind when they talk about leadership. So that's a hardwired thing. If you talk about well, I don't know if it's nature. At least it's 10,000 years culture, that this image of leadership, it needs to change and become more female indeed, and that probably takes a long time still.
Do you have a lot of women in political leadership or other positions of leadership in the Netherlands? Do you see that?
Well, yes, there's a lot of leadership roles for women in the Netherlands, but like I say, it's still it's still a little bit harder for a woman to be seen as a strong leader than a man, and there is a large tendency for men to take the stage and to think they deserve to be in the stage despite the achievements of a women, and women are still. They like being in the background, and they don't need to be so much on the center stage. And if there's a man who wants to be there, please be my guest. And that thing doesn't help either.
Well, that certainly is true. A lot of that still happens. Um, so as we think about the story we want for 2030, and we look at the SDGs and the headlines we want to see happening then, would you share with me a headline story from the year 2030 about women that you would like to see?
I like to see women more in the forefront of science. I mean, science is the ideal place because you can just be in your lab and focus on the intellectual work. and their achievements really matter. So yes, I like to see women more on the foreground of science than men. I mean, relatively.
So you would want
Um,
to see some headlines with an all-female team breaking through on what? A breakthrough for what would be your, let's say, your on your wish list of a major scientific breakthrough?
bum, bum, bum. Um, I think it has to do something with restoring soil, you know,
Ah, ah.
restoring salinated soil and making it more
Nah,
fertile.
that would be major, wouldn't it?
Yes,
Because if we're talking about climate change and encroachment, like in the Caribbean where I'm from, that's a concern. You know, that the
yes,
water table is going to be damaged with, encroachment under the sea into the limestone, which creates more salinity in water, which means we can't grow crops. That's really great. So on that note, then, would you say that you are more optimistic or pessimistic or neutralistic? That's a word I made up. It doesn't exist. About the future.
I think what I share is the notion of hope, and I think hope is the first stage of action. And whether I'm optimistic or pessimistic depends on the news that I'm reading. I think there's a lot of both in these ways. There's a lot of great initiatives, and I think there's a lot of hope in people, and that's what giving me the strongest hope. There's a lot of people who do things because of their passion. They do things because they want to create a better world. But at the same time, there are lots of tendencies going in the wrong direction. So I cannot say I'm positive or negative, but I share the hope that we can get the insight that we need to take all these steps and create a better future.
Do you think that as women who are futurists, there's a particular role we can play in the paradigm shift that needs to occur? Can or should? Or should we not? Should we just be observers?
No, we should definitely not be the observers. I think the role of a futurist is to make people see the bigger picture, to make people see that it's not about all these struggles that we're doing today, that what we do now matters for the long term. So foresight is a bit of a wake-up call for lots of people because they hardly think about the future. And there it doesn't matter if you're a woman or man, but yeah, I have to say that lots of my futurist pals, they're women, and yeah, we have a lot of fun together, and I don't know, we maybe share some deeper notions because we're all women. We just set up an initiative. It's a collaboration initiative between four independent futurists. We call it 360 Foresight, and
Ah,
it's with four women. So we're starting to create a company with four foresight women. So yeah,
well,
for
count
one
me in.
reason, I team up with women all the time.
So count me in. 364 side with women. So count me in because indeed, one of the things that how I found you was the fact that there's this list. The question was asked last year: why are so few women futurists? And that may be because when we used to talk about the future back in the day, we were burnt at the stake as witches. So, so
I don't
to keep our mouth shut when we say things, like, let me not say anything because they might call me a witch. So it could be that. So this has really been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claire. It's
I,
great to be on the show.
I just want to say thank you again to Freya Donia, who is with let me get your company name again. What's the name of your company?
Future Motions is my private company, and the initiative of the four female futurists, it's called 360 Foresight.
So 364 side, where first time hearing of it, I'm excited to hear about it. I certainly would like to be a part of that network, and really thanking her for her work in launching 364 site and for sharing her words of wisdom with us. And do you have any last words of wisdom to add? Freya?
Well, I really appreciate your initiative and I really enjoyed your questions, and it's good to think about the role of women in the 21st century. So thank you for this initiative.
Yeah, so thank you again. So, folks, I want to thank you for listening to another edition of Future Sense Now and with our guest, Freya Dunner. And as we leave you to ponder your own pathway and plans for the construction of the future, I'm just asking you to remember it is better to see yourself as the parent of your future than to focus on being the offspring of your past. So, thank you, and do listen again to Future Sense Now.
You have been listening to Future Sense Now with Dr. Claire Nelson, brought to you by the Futures Forum. For more, please visit www.thefuturesforum.org. Thank you for listening. Spread the word. Share the future.